Hello everybody. This video is going to be a little bit different than some of my past Civ Beyond Earth videos. This one is going to be more for the introductory players to Civilization. It seems like I've heard quite a few people that have all of a sudden had some interest in what Civ is all about, that either maybe have never played Civ before or may have played it a little bit and aren't aware of some of the newer features that Beyond Earth provides. So this is really going to be for noobs, not so much for the experienced Civ player. And I'm hoping it's going to be a very basic video. So I'm hoping that some of the players that are interested in dabbling into Civ will actually get a good feel for what it's all about. First of all, what is Civilization? Well, it's a strategy game. A strategy where you're going to try to win against other players or against computer-generated players. It's what's also known as a turn-based strategy game, which basically means that players take turns, including the computer players. And the nice thing about that is going to be the fact that as you're learning a game for the first time, it's nice to have the turn-based kind of game as opposed to the opposite, which is a real-time strategy game. In a real-time strategy game, you kind of have some time pressures because everybody's doing their thing at once, and if you're not doing anything, there's still other players doing things, and they can easily get an advantage that way. But Civilization is not like that. Everybody gets their turn. You get to do yours, and everybody pauses while you do yours, and vice versa. Now that's not completely true in multiplayer games. You do have people that are doing things at the same time. However, it will not advance until everybody's had a chance to do a round of their turn, basically. But again, that's not all that important to worry about right now. Just realize that it's kind of nice in the fact that you don't have that time pressure when it comes to trying to learn this game. And realize this game has a very high learning curve, especially for somebody who's never played it before. I first got introduced to Civ back when version 2 was out, Civilization 2. And I came very close to giving up on it simply because it was just overwhelming. And it hasn't really changed since then as far as the amount of information that you need to digest. The only thing I can recommend regarding that is not to give up. I think that you'll find that if you stick with it, that you will gain more and more knowledge over time, and that you'll end up falling in love with the game just like many others have. Civ is one of the more popular PC game series that's ever been done. If you ever look at some of the magazines, the PC magazines, and their top games of all time kind of articles, you'll almost always see Civilization up towards the top, if not in the top 10, because it does have a very strong following. So again, just don't give up on it. There is a steep learning curve, just understand that. And I'm hoping things like this video that I'm going to do for you will be something that'll help you out in regards to that. There's a lot of other resources. You've got your manual that comes with the game. You have something called the Civilopedia, which will show you once we get into the game. Plenty of different resources, not to mention the different websites that are out there that have forums that talk about the game and whatnot. Plenty of resources to learn about the game more and more. And believe it or not, even though I consider myself an experienced player, there are still new things I'm learning each and every week about strategy and civilization as a whole, kind of thing. Let's go ahead and just kind of get into it. I'll give you a little bit more introductory on Civ as we play along here. But for interest's sake, let's just go ahead and start a game and kind of get going on it. You can see the different options here, and obviously when you're playing Civ for the first time, I always recommend going for the single player. If you try to go multiplayer, you're probably going to end up going against some other experienced player, unless you have another friend that may be new to Civ. Then multiplayer might be an option. But I think single player is good just to get familiar with how the game is played and the different options. And again, due to the steep learning curve, there's a lot to digest in a short amount of time. And I think just doing a basic game, a single player game for the first time will really help you out a lot in that respect. Let's go ahead and set up a game. Here's the different levels of gameplay as far as the difficulty is concerned, going from the easiest, the Sputnik, all the way to the hardest, which is the Apollo level of difficulty. When you first start out, by all means, I would say start with the Sputnik, the easiest one. Your game pace, this is going to be a personal preference of yours. The difficulty of the game is not really affected by these, just basically the speed of the game. And realize Civ games can take hours and hours. My average time, I would say, on a Civ game probably is about somewhere between 10 to 20 hours for just a standard game. And of course, I kind of play kind of cautious and slow, but as you learn the game more and more, you'll find that the time gets less and less. So for now, let's go ahead with the standard, just so you'll see what the standard game is about. And then you've got your map size. For this particular lesson, I'm going to say let's go, I would normally suggest standard, but I'm going to say massive just because I want you to kind of experience the beginning gameplay a little bit. And how some of the things relate before you meet with other civs. I just think for this particular tutorial, going this way might help you to understand the beginning game a little bit, which is one of the more important aspects to learn. So once you've got your difficulty, game pace, and map size set, go ahead and accept. And what you got here is you're going to have a few decisions to make regarding your game setup. And these icons down here in the lower right represent the different things that you're going to be deciding upon. First and foremost is going to be the designate sponsor. Basically what's happened here is something's happened on Earth, something known as the Great Mistake. And because of this great mistake, and it's kind of a mystery as to what the Great Mistake is, but in a nutshell, it's something bad enough that is impending humans to get off of Earth and to go find another place to live. So you're going to be representing some of the different sponsors of spaceships that are going to be sent up. And when you play your first game, it's going to be kind of tough to choose which of these to go with, simply because you're not going to understand the descriptions so much until you've actually gotten into the game and played it and understood what things like production, extra production is, or covert operations, whatnot. So I would just suggest for your first game, just go ahead and pick a random. The only basic things I can kind of tell you regarding all these is if you do have a military bend, if you're looking to play, the domination type, go shoot up the other players kind of thing, Brasilia probably has a little bit of bonus towards that. Basically, their military units have an extra 10% strength that the others wouldn't. Just looking at these others, again, most of these others are really tough to understand until you actually get into the game. Franco-Iberia, they've got a little bit of a science bend. So if your goal might be if you're into learning new technologies and being ahead of other races, technological wise, then you may want to consider going with Franco-Iberia. But these others, I'm not going to go into detail just yet, simply because a lot of them you really have to do the gameplay before you realize what they truly mean. So let's go ahead and just pick a random for now. And we can go next. and here's the next thing we need to decide is what kind of colonists do we want to have on our spaceship that we're taking to the new planet. Again, these things are going to be a little bit tough to understand until you've gotten into the game. Some of them can be kind of self-explanatory, though. Obviously, scientists are going to help out with those that want to learn technologies quick. Food is good to grow your cities to big sizes. When we talk about energy, we're really talking about the economic system of this game. Energy equals the economy. And again, you'll understand that a little better once we get started. Production is good for building things within your cities, buildings, units, whatnot. And artists are good for what's known as culture and health, which are some of the items you need to manage as part of your civilization. Again, don't think too hard on this for your first game. I would just suggest random for now. Next, you got to choose what kind of spacecraft you're going to want to take to the new planet. And again, this kind of gives you some extra bonuses. Not really much to reveal here again until we've had some gameplay under the belt. Maybe again, if you're more interested in managing an economy of a civilization, possibly the fusion reactor. Again, energy equals the economy of this game. I would choose random, but for this particular tutorial, I'm going to choose retrograde thrusters. And the reason for that is it's going to give us a wider area to choose where to build our first city, which is one of the most important decisions in the game. And the reason I'm choosing this simply for this tutorial is I want to kind of give you a good feel for how to evaluate where your starting position should be. Once you've gotten a good feel on how to do that, then some of these others may indeed be more beneficial to you than the retrograde thrusters. But for the new player, and because I really want to show you how to evaluate your first turn, this is the one I want to pick simply for this tutorial. And let's go on to the next step. Again, until you get familiar with the technologies and the units that are available to you, this might be a little tough to decide on. But some of it is kind of explanatory, and extra units or extra technology kind of thing. Clinics are good for health. Again, you'll understand that more once you've started playing. And hydroponics gives you an extra population in your first city, so your city will be bigger than everybody else as far as the first one is concerned. Let's just go ahead and choose random again for now. And go to next. And next, our next choice is to figure out what kind of a planet we want to land on. Specifically, as far as the landmass and oceans are. You can have big, huge continents, which everybody will land on and kind of share the whole continent with each other. You can have island-type maps, whereby everybody's kind of on their own island. And for such a map like that, you're going to have to focus on building up a navy and your naval units. Just because you'll need to get across the oceans or the seas to get to some of those other players. Again, experience will be the thing that helps you out to understand which is the best way to go. For now, let's just go ahead and do a random world. And at this point, I think we've done all the particular things we need to choose as far as how we're going to start our new game. So let's just go ahead and click Start here. And it's going to take a little while just to kind of build your map and your game based on the decisions that you made. You can read this nice little quote here. It's nothing you have to memorize. It doesn't have anything to do with the gameplay, but these quotes are kind of interesting to help learn the background of the great mistake or why you're, being sent to another planet to colonize a new planet. And sometimes you'll get some references to sci-fi movies, sci-fi books. So if you definitely have that science fiction bent in you, you'll find that some of these quotes can be interesting to read. What we're doing here, and it just popped up, is we were waiting for this circle to turn green. Before it was just gray, but now it's green. Once it turns green, that tells you that your game is ready to play. And all you have to do is click on it. And the first thing you'll be asked is, what kind of advice do you want for your game? And you have a bunch of different options. Obviously, if you're new to Civ, this is the one to go, new to Civilization. If you're new to Beyond Earth, you've had experience with Civ 5 especially, then new to Beyond Earth might be the way to go. The experienced player, and then there's no advice option also. Now, I'm going to choose no advice simply because I don't want to get in the way of what I'm trying to teach you. But obviously, when you play for the first time, you'll want to choose one of these other options, either the new to Civilization or new to Beyond Earth. You really will pick up a lot when you choose those. You'll get a lot of direction from the game itself. And again, because of the steep learning curve, every little bit will help. But I want you to experience those on your own. So for this particular tutorial, I'm going to click the no advice and then click continue. And all of a sudden this pops up. So your first reaction might be, what the heck is this? A big red blob just in the middle of nowhere. Well, there's actually a lot to see here, and we're going to try to hope to see exactly the different things that are available to us resource-wise and whatnot. So what we're looking at here is a representation of the area, of the map area that we can land our spaceship at, which is going to become the landing spot for our first city, which is also going to become our capital. So this is actually a pretty important thing to figure out, is where to place your first city. I think a lot of people underestimate how important it is. The reason it is important is because whatever this first decision you make is going to become exponentially more important as the game goes on. The best thing I can compare it to is, how some people say that, when you're saving for retirement, if you had only started your retirement plan 1 year earlier, you would have doubled your money by the time you retired. Similar kind of thing here with your first city in Civilization. Is the importance of it will grow exponentially as time goes on. And that's why it is a somewhat important decision. It's kind of tough to know why that is when you first start out, but just realize, because it is an important decision, you should take some time to evaluate where exactly you want to place that first city. And this red area that we're seeing here is a representation of where we, the different squares, the different hexes that we can put our first city placement at. I'm going to go ahead and turn on the Hex Grid here just so you can see the different tiles and how those work. So these are different places. These are all different places that you can land your spaceship to create your first city. Some of the notable things to show off right away is you have some resources here, some fiber. You've got it in this hex, as well as this hex here also. Another thing to evaluate here is these bluish green gas-like blobs in these 4 hexes. This is what's known as miasma. And what miasma does is it's a poisonous gas for humans to be in. So you're going to be creating units such as workers and soldiers, whatnot. And if they end up in this miasma, their health is going to decrease simply by being inside of it. So it's just something to be aware of. It's not good to have, but there is some workarounds which we'll show later on. Got to back up a step here and just kind of look outside the area. And you can see there's a number of other resources. Looking up north here, there's quite a bit. And resting our mouse on some of them, xenomass, fungus, fruit, more fungus, some phyrexite. This over here is a derelict settlement, which I'll go over shortly. You've got some more Phyrexite over here. We've got some Reslin to the west of us. We've got some basalt, more fungus. Out in the oceans here, we have some coral, as well as some floatstone over to the east of us, and some more basalt. And also some silica, and some xenomass there also. Resources are good. The more resources you have available around your city, the better that city will be as far as getting some extra bonuses and growth are concerned. So looking at this map area right now, realize we can't put our first city anywhere except within the red area. But if I was to look at this and say, where would we send our colonists to build a second city? Up here would probably be a pretty good area, simply because look at the number of resources that are up here compared to, let's say, out west, where you don't have as many resources. So again, resources are good. Miasma is bad. The other things that you should consider in your first landing spot is what kind of land you have around. And just close that for now. As you rest your mouse on these different hexes, over in the upper right corner, up by that eye looking icon, you see that this says it's a grassland and river. Going down here, this is a grassland hill. Over here is a forest with grassland river. So there is a river that's actually going through here, kind of a little bit tough to see. But you know, just looking at some of the other hexes, here's grassland with miasma. So that's another thing you're going to kind of want to look at. Grassland is usually pretty good when you first land your first city. Rivers are also good, simply because those areas seem to produce more food, which helps your city grow. And for your first city, that's a pretty important concept, is to grow that first city to a big size. The other thing to look at here is some of these particular land types provide some extra defensive bonuses, such as a hill. A hill is actually tougher or better to defend a city as opposed to, let's say, this square here. I'm sorry, this hex here, which isn't on a hill. And you know, just think about, you know, in history, that times that there have been battles, it's always been tougher for an opponent to tackle a city on a hill than it is a city that's out in the open of a field, let's say. So there's kind of a logic to that. So in looking at this, again, we can't build a first city up here simply because we have to do it within the red hex. And realize one of the choices I had made in setting up our game was that retrograde thrusters, I believe it was called, which enabled us to see more of the area to land on. So your standard game, we probably wouldn't have seen this area or the outlying areas here. We might have just seen this particular area, and we wouldn't have had as much of an area to choose from as far as land in. We probably only would have had this inner hex circle here and this one square as our choice. So rivers are good. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 squares that are along this river, it appears. I'm kind of liking the defensive bonus of the hill, and you know, realize our fiber is right next to it, so that'll be easy to get to and work on to provide better bonuses. So for this, I'm going to go ahead and choose this square, or I'm sorry, this hex right dab in the middle as our starting point for our first city. And again, once we get to the point of expanding, I'm looking at this area up here as a good secondary place. So we're going to go ahead and land our spaceship here, simply by clicking on it. And the city of Karabrost is now our first city, also known as our capital city. One of the things you'll notice is it gave us a unit right away. This happens to be an explorer unit. and I'll go over that momentarily. And over down here to the lower right are things that we need to look at to find out what things happened as we were landing. New updates in the victory log. And basically these are the 5 victory ways to achieve victory in Civ Beyond Earth. And we'll go over more in depth into those later on. But just realize that as the game goes along, you're going to want to gear towards one of these victories to win the game. Next, we have a few resource pods that were discovered around our area. So go ahead and click on one, and it shows you, brings you right on the map to where that is. And you can see this is what a resource pod looks like. And what a resource pod is your sponsor for your spaceship decided to send some things ahead of you that will help you to help grow your city, to help grow your Civ, and to make things better for you. The only thing is he didn't know exactly where you were going to land, so you'll find that they're in different places throughout the map. Realize that these are available to anybody that lands on the planet, so there is kind of a race component involved in getting to this resource pod to get the resources that it has available to you. So there's 2 of them. There's the one down here, but there's also a second one over here to the west. So keep in mind where those are. We very well will probably send our Explorer unit towards those simply to take advantage of getting those first. The next thing we need to do is choose what research we want to research. And when you click on that, it brings up what's known as the tech web. These particular techs that kind of look like a light blue, kind of lit up a little bit, are techs that we already have. The ones that are in purple are the ones we can currently choose from as far as what tech we want to work on next. In parentheses is the number of turns it will take for us based on our current science production, how many turns it will take to complete those technologies. So you can see pretty much all the ones that are available to us are going to take 23 turns. Except underneath habitation we also have 2 techs there to choose from, and those will only take 19 apiece. It's kind of tough to say which tech you should choose right away. This is something that with experience you'll kind of get an idea as to what techs are better than others. Realize that with each technology that you build, you have new buildings and units available to you. And the way to look at those units and buildings are to simply rest on the different icons that are underneath the tech. So as an example, let's just look at pioneering here. First of all, if you just want a general description of what pioneering does, just rest your mouse on the flag. And then in this case it tells us that it allows the trade depot building, allows the colonist, trade convoy, and trade vessel units. So your question here is going to be, well, what is a trade depot? What does that do? What does a colonist do? Same with trade convoy and trade vessel. I don't understand those concepts. So that's where we rest our mouse on the individual icons underneath pioneering to find out what those do. And in this case, the colonist is a civilian unit, and it's the unit that can establish an outpost, which transforms into a full city once time passes and it acquires all the territory adjacent to it. So basically, we've got one city right now where our spaceship landed, but if we want to go ahead and create new cities for our civilization, we're going to need a colonist to go out there and help to create those cities. The trade convoy allows us, well, first of all, it's a trade unit, but it allows us to build the other 2 units that are listed here, the trade vessel. The trade depot is the building we need to use the trade vessels and the trade convoys. The trade depot allows 2 trade routes to be established from our cities. The trade vessel is a naval trade unit. It's the one we'd send over the sea to cities that are on other continents to help trade with them. And the trade convoy is the unit we would need to trade with other cities that are within the continent we're currently on. So again, the important thing just to realize here is that as you can rest your mouse on your different buildings and units, you'll get a good description as to what those are all about to help you make the decision on what you want to focus on building next. For now, I'm going to go ahead and choose the pioneering simply because that is an important first technology to get. But as you get more advanced, you might find that some of these others are more important to get first before getting the pioneering unit. And again, the reason I'm choosing pioneering right now is simply because I want to show you how to create a colonist, how to go about building a second city and future cities from there on, as well as to get you exposed to trading, which is a powerful thing within this particular game. You'll notice up in the upper left it shows we're now working on pioneering, and again it'll take us 19 turns based on our current science production to complete that. Now what do I mean by that, based on our current science production? Well, realize that your city, when you landed, you've got a group of population with you, and some of that population is scientists that are going to help to do the R&D, the research and development, to help you advance to new technologies. And the way to evaluate how much of those scientists you've got is up in the upper right hand corner here. There's what looks like a blue beaker, and it tells you you're going to get 4 beakers per turn. So this is the number that equates to how long it's going to take to build your technology. As this number increases, your technologies will be built quicker. And if you're quick enough, you'll have a technological advantage over the other civs that land on this particular planet. So the only, just to not throw too much at you at once, as you're just getting introduced to Civ here, just realize that this number of turns to create the next tech equates to the amount of science that your civilization is producing. And you'll see there's ways to increase that. There's certain buildings, certain units, certain resources, certain improvements we can do around our city that will help to increase that number as time goes on. Our next decision is to choose production for our city. So we landed our spaceship. We got our first city, our capital. And by the way, you'll know that which cities are the capitals based on the star that's in front of the name. So as other civilizations land and start creating their cities, always look for the one with the star to try to figure out which is their capital. But we need to make a decision on what we want our city to start working on as far as what do we want it to produce. And here are our options. Don't worry about the other section for now. That's going to be something for a more advanced tutorial. But for now we're going to look at the units section and the building section. So we can only choose one of these. And just like technologies, it tells us how many turns it's going to take to create these particular units or buildings. And again, what you're going to want to do is rest your mouse on these particular units and buildings to figure out exactly what they do. A worker, it constructs improvements on land and at sea, increasing the effectiveness of tiles when worked by a city's population. So you know how before we were evaluating our landing area, we noticed that there's some fiber here and fiber here. And as you rest your mouse on it, you'll see it tells you that when improved with a plantation, you're going to get a +1 production out of this. So realize you don't get that +1 automatically. You need a worker unit that's actually going to create that plantation on this particular hex in order to take advantage of that +1 production per turn. That'll help you to build your buildings and units quicker. The worker is the unit that you need to do that. The explorer that's currently on it, he doesn't have that ability to give you the bonuses for this particular resource. Only the worker is the one that does. The Explorer unit, I'll go over him in a second. The Soldier is the first military unit that's available to you. And realize that you're going to have some civilizations that, when they land, may have the impetus to dominate the world and will go after you right away. The other thing you're going to need to contend with right away is realize this is a new planet you're landing on. And if it's a planet that is okay for humans to live on, then there's a good chance it's also a planet for other living organisms and aliens to live on. And yes, you will most likely encounter those aliens. Whether or not they will be friendly to you or not is to be something that you'll need to determine. But a soldier unit, if you were to build them, they could help with the protection of your city and your units, should indeed you have aliens that are aggressive and want to attack those other units. So that's why you might want to build a soldier. Let's look at the buildings. First of all, you can build a clinic. Clinic will give you +1 science and +1 health. Going back to what we said before about how much science you generate per turn. Obviously, if you were able to build this clinic, this would go up by +1. So you get +5 per turn instead of +4. Realize it also gives some health, which is this green EKG looking icon right here. And as you rest your mouse on it, it'll tell you a little bit about health. Basically, health of your civilization will help. If you have good health, it'll grow quicker. You'll have things that will be built faster, grow quicker. Cities will get bigger quicker. And if you have bad health, you're going to get some penalties to things like your science, your production, your energy, and other things. So it's kind of important to keep your health in a positive number. There are times where you may need to go into negative health, but just realize that when you do that, you're going to get a little bit of hit to some of the bonuses that are available to you to help grow your civilization bigger. Sometimes it's tough to avoid doing that, but obviously if you're able to build something like the clinic, that will definitely help to keep you in positive and good health, for your civ to be in positive and good health. We're at 9 right now, so that's not too bad. And again, because we're in positive health, you can see we're getting a bonus of 20% speed towards outpost growth, which we'll go over outpost growth shortly also. The other building we'll look at here is the Old Earth Relic, which will give us +2 in culture. If you look up here at the top, here's the culture, how much culture we're getting in our civ. It tells us right now we've gotten 0, and we need 15 to develop the next virtue. I'll go into virtues shortly also. So again, it's just important to look at these, and you've got to make a decision as to which one of these do you want to build. There's no right answer, by the way, to these questions. A lot of it depends on your gameplay style, as well as maybe the resources that are around you. Things like if you feel threatened by aliens, each of these will have a different weight depending on what kind of situation that you're in at a given time. For now, because I don't see any sign of aliens just yet, and because I'd really like to get this +1 production from this fiber, I'm going to go ahead and choose the worker, because I want him to work that tile and take advantage of it. But again, these others would not have been a wrong decision, just a different decision. And each person has their own personal preference as to the way they want to develop their civilization. And that's what the game is all about. I did promise you I was going to tell you a little bit about the Explorer. And realize we already have one Explorer on our map already that's available for us to use. As you can see here, I'll read the description. It's ideal for scouting the terrain, opposing forces, and alien activity. Its light combat strength gives it modest defense, but it is not suited to full-scale warfare. For now, let's go ahead and choose our worker, because that's what we want to build on. Let's talk about this explorer a little bit. His main function is to explore the land and realize that there's tons of land here that have yet to be explored. And this is nowhere near the full map. If you look at your mini map here, which is a small representation of the bigger screen here, realize there's a lot more out here that we just can't pan to just yet. And especially since we chose a massive map, I'm going to guess this is probably maybe a 50th of how big the map will truly be. Maybe a 50th to 100th of what the final full map will be. So the Explorer is kind of a good unit to go out and to move into these other areas to expose what's behind the black area here. This black area, by the way, is what's known as the fog of war. Not that it has anything to do with war, but it basically means that you can't see anything outside of here until you've moved a unit over there to check things out. You know, if you land on a new planet, you're obviously not going to know the whole map of the planet as you're landing on it. You're just going to know the area around you. And that's why at this point we only know of this area. So the Explorer is good to help to figure out what's beyond the borders of what we can see. Another thing that the Explorer is good for is, we talked about it before, these resource pods that are out here. They can go out to these resource pods and find out what's in them. And since there is a time element involved in the fact that other civs, once they land, they can also go for these resource pods. Sometimes the Explorer, especially since that's the only unit available to us at the moment, that might be a good use for them to, a good thing for them to focus on right now is to go ahead and get those resource pods before the other civs do. Another excellent thing that the Explorer is good for is what's known as checking out artifacts and derelict settlements and similar kind of things on your map. And we've already found a few. Up here in the upper left corner here, we have this derelict settlement. And if you rest your mouse on it, it tells you use an Explorer unit to build an expedition here. So basically you can send that Explorer from your city over to that hex and create an expedition. And once the expedition is done, usually in about 4 or 5 turns, you will get whatever they find from that particular spot. Usually some kind of bonus to help your, it could be extra science, it could be extra energy, it could be extra health, extra culture, it could be a number of things. It could even give you, help you out to develop your next technology quicker, that kind of thing. So they're definitely good to go and explore. And I think we actually had a second one. I'm thinking we did have another square here also. No, I guess I'm wrong on that. I thought we had another square that was similar, but we don't. So again, we've got really 3 good places to send this Explorer. To the resource pods or to the derelict settlement. Realize that with resource pods, it's not only the Explorer that can find out what's inside of those. It's actually any unit, a soldier unit, let's say, that can actually go over there and find out what's in there also. You wouldn't want to use a worker. Your workers, you pretty much want to work the land around your city. So that would not be appropriate for our worker to go over there. So now you've basically got this decision is what to do with this Explorer. Go after the resource pods or have them go up here to the derelict settlement. I think I'm going to start them up that way. Simply because I don't think any other civilizations have landed yet. Now, if they do indeed land, and they land somewhere down here or over here, then I might decide, oh, I want to go after those resource pods sooner rather than later after all. But for now, since he's the only one that can work on this derelict settlement, I think I'm going to want to send him over there. But again, going after the resource pods would not have been a wrong decision. It's just a different way to manage your game. And there's really no way of knowing what the best way is because we really don't know where the other civs are going to land just yet. So it's at this point, it's you make your best guess. So we're going to go ahead and move him. And you can see there's different places he can move. One thing I'm looking at as I move him towards this derelict settlement is I'm checking out where that miasma is. That greenish, bluish gas, like poison. You can see there's a bunch right here, so I'm not going to want to send them through that area, as an example. I'm probably going to want to send them around either this way or possibly around this way to get to the derelict settlement. So I'll go ahead and move him to this square for now. And you'll see that's all I have to do that particular turn. You can see the next turn button has now lit up green to prepare me for my next turn. But realize that even though there's not much to do on your turns at the very beginning of the game, that there actually is a lot. We did things like we decided what technology our scientists are going to work on. We decided what we're going to work on as far as our city production is concerned. We investigated where the resource pods were. We made a decision as to whether or not we wanted to work on building a unit versus a building, whatnot. So these are all, again, important decisions that as the game goes on will become more important simply because we did those at the initial steps. So at this point, we'll go ahead and go to the next turn and see what kind of decisions we'll need to make for that.